The Jumper T-Lite is my daily driver, and for good reason. It's small with the ergonomic design, features Hall-style gimbals, and at the time of purchase was really inexpensive. But since that time, many manufacturers have caught up and made radios with similar specifications and form factor. Well, Jumper is back with a V2 of their Lite radio. So let's take a closer look at this and see if these small changes make a big difference. So here it is, the Jumper T-Lite V2, and the box on here is pretty cool, very reminiscent of the V1, maybe even identical. And what I remember about that was the artwork on this. This thing is amazing. I remember saying to myself that the artist did an amazing job designing the art on this box, and I still do think that this thing looks really amazing, guys. Now besides that, the only difference is just this little sticker in here. It does say the T-Lite ELRS and it says V2 on here, so this is the version 2. But besides that, everything here seems to be almost or is identical to the V1 box. So let's open this up and see what's inside. All right, so very similar experience here. You're greeted with a manual or a quick start guide. And then you have some stickers here, very identical to the V1 stickers. And here's the mounting solution for your external base. If you want to add a Crossfire or an Express ELRS module, you need to add this to your radio. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. And here's the radio. Let's take this off right here, a plastic cover. And here's the radio, very similar to the V1. It looks identical. Really cool. Let's put this right here. All right, and then you have a cord down here. It looks like a USB-C to USB-A cord, and that's gonna be used for charging and for interfacing with your computer for either firmware updates or using this as a simulator. So, good touch. You have your antenna, which is pretty standard with any radio. And then you have a battery case or battery holder that can hold two 18650 batteries. Okay, so let's take a closer look at this new T-Lite radio. And the first thing I noticed here is how light this thing is. Now on the Jumper website, it indicates that this thing weighs around 203 grams. So very, very light. And that's without the battery. So let's see how true that is. I have my scale right here. Let's see how much it weighs. And that shows 199 grams. So really light, under the 203. Let's add the antenna. And it's showing 207. So just a little bit over there, over the 203. And while we're here, let's add the battery as well. I have an 18650 battery. And there you go, 250 grams. So you don't have to register this with the FAA. Just kidding. All right, so let's put this away. All right, so the second thing I noticed is the texture and finish on this radio. Now the Jumper T-Lite is known for having a soft rubberized texture on the radio, just like this one right here. This is the original Jumper T-Lite. And it has a rubberized feeling on here. Now, unpopular opinion, I kind of like the texture on the original Jumper T-Lite, but there were some concerns that these things could peel off and then turn really gummy and rubbery, especially in warmer climates. But for me right now, mine looks relatively new, so I never had any issue with that, and to me it does increase the grip. Now on the new one, it's a little bit less texturized, less rubberized. It's almost like it's integrated into the plastic, but I guarantee that this is gonna hold up a lot better than the original texture on the V1s. Now, as far as the colors, they're pretty much identical, if you can see that. It just looks like the original is just slightly darker. Now, the standout feature on this radio here is the screen right here, and this is a 1.3-inch screen, and it works pretty well. It does the job. This is what makes this radio stand out from the other competitors, that is integrated into the radio and adds to this form factor and small size. You have other radios with screens on top or extended from the radio, making it less portable. So this is pretty cool. I do wish though it was an OLED display, and that's a little bit more clear both in daytime and nighttime, but this I think is just an LCD screen, but it does do the job. Then you have these gimbals right here. These gimbals are pretty cool. These are really important. These are Hall sensor gimbals, and they said this is a full-size Hall sensor gimbal, and they feel very similar to the old version 1 gimbals. Not bad. In fact, the version 1 feels a little bit smoother, but that's because this one here is well broken in. But they feel pretty good, really tight. And these stick ends are adjustable, so you can extend them or just change the stick ends on here altogether. So that's a pretty cool feature. Below the gimbals, you have these little holes here, and that's for the speaker that's integrated into the radio. And that's used for callouts, or if you have telemetry issues, or you just want to hear your telemetries, or if you change the modes or switches on here, you're going to hear it in the speaker. Really good if you're flying under the goggles or in the goggles, and you want to see if something has changed, whether it be telemetry or you have changed a mode. Now, another unique characteristic of this radio is these navigation buttons. There's so many buttons on here, and it can be kind of intimidating at first, but just remember, these 8 buttons right here are used for trimming these sticks, whether you want to center them or move them left to right. Although we don't use trims too much in FPV, you do have them. So left and right for this stick, up and down for this stick, and left to right for the throttle or left stick, and up and down here. So you have left and right and up and down for each stick, which is pretty cool. Besides that, you have your power button, and then you have your left and right. Although it says system and model, you can get to the model page or your system page with this, or you can also navigate left and right with these 2 pages as well. The other 4 here are self-explanatory: enter, return, up and down. And we'll show you how to use it once we power this radio up. Now on top you have these switches here, and that's one thing as well. This is a pretty cool design. This is a classic design, I would say, because a lot of the new radios are going to another, like a rocker switch design, or a momentary, or some kind of a locking, latching, type of switch. You have these, I won't say full-size switches. They're a little bit smaller than full-size switches, but these are very similar to the switches that you would find in a full-size radio, something like a T18 or T16. Now, besides that, you have a USB-C port right here, and that's used for charging the battery in your radio, or interfacing with the computer for firmware updates, or just for the simulator. Besides, you have a micro SD slot here, and that's used for maybe upgrading the firmware, saving models, and to add sound pack or sound to your radio. Really cool. To the right, you have a 3.5mm jack, and that's used for either training or for audio, most likely a trainer port. Now, besides that, you have an SMA connector right here used for your antenna, and that's pretty cool because you can actually change it. In this case, it's as easy as just screwing this on, and then you have your antenna connected. As I said before, you want to have this connected before you power this up. So for right now, it's on there pretty good. Now there's 2 holes on top here, one to the left, one to the right of the SMA antenna, and that's to add accessories to this, just like a small monitor. But if you don't want to use your goggles, you can add any kind of accessory on this, and that's a pretty cool mounting solution for this radio. Now the Jumper T-Lite V2 does use the same battery size as the version 1, and this is the battery compartment right here. And what they're saying is just make sure you have the battery in the right polarity, and there's another warning sticker in here as well. So they're making sure that you get that correct. Now, I've done multiple videos on finding the right battery for your FPV device. I'll leave a video linked above so you can take a look at it. So let's see if I can get it right. I can see that there's a minus sign on the left and a positive on the right. So I'll just put the battery in here while we're here at this moment. And it's so funny. I was gonna say, the first time using this, the V1, we had some issues with fitment. You can see how easy that comes out. It might be in your best interest if you have a screwdriver, which I don't have right here, and extend these tabs out a little bit more. All right, that looks good. And let's see if it will take it now. All right, that's a little bit better. Perfect. Now below the battery, you have 2 small holes here, and that's to mount your external bay. You're like, what external bay? I don't see anything. If you remove this little cover of plastic, you see that there's a hole on a port here. And we talked about this earlier when we did the unpackaging. You just mount this to the back. It's just 3 mounting holes, and then you can add your external module, whether it be like an Express ELRS module or even Crossfire. So that's pretty cool. And I have that already done on my V1. So it is a well-used feature or accessory in this radio. So why would I go for this newer V2? Why would I spend the money to get the V2 if I already have the V1? That's a really good question. Let's talk about the changes between the V1 and the V2. So let's start off by talking about some of the changes that you can't see, because as we saw earlier, it looks very identical. So the first change, which is arguably the biggest, is internal, and that's the power management. And not necessarily the battery, it's still the same 1S18650 battery, but how it manages the electricity and current in this whole unit. Now the V1 did a pretty decent job, powering external devices, but when you get to higher power levels, especially with the Crossfire module, then it really couldn't keep up with the demands of some, external modules. With the V2, they've done some dramatic changes to increase the capacity and capabilities of the electricity or electrical power output on this radio. The second big change they made internally was to add Express ELRS. This has Express ELRS built in internally. Now the V1 didn't have that. This has a 4-in-1 module, and to get Express ELRS, you would have to add an external module to the back, and then you would have Express ELRS. Now this is pretty cool in the V2 since Express ELRS is like the newest and latest and greatest thing going on in FPV. Mostly everyone is going to Express ELRS. Even manufacturers are now putting Express ELRS in their bind and fly. So to have Express ELRS built into this, I no longer have to have a module. I can just toss this into my bag and I'll have this. Now this is limited to 150 milliwatts, but that's pretty decent range, around 5 kilometers. Now if you want more than that, you can actually add the external module and get full capabilities on this, anywhere 30, 40 kilometers. So that's still an option if you want more power. The next to go along with that is, because this has the latest and greatest Express ELRS on here, this thing is capable of 1000 hertz. Now that may be a little cop-out because that's also included in the latest version of Express ELRS, but before that you were limited to around 250 to 500 hertz on the older model. So to have 1000 hertz is crazy, really good for racing, and if you want to have really good response time, then you have faster refresh rates. The next change they made was having Edge TX on this radio, and I don't know if that's specific to Express ELRS or to the 4-in-1 module or protocol in this. This one here is the Express ELRS version, and I do think it's running OpenTX. I haven't powered this on yet, so we'll find if it has Edge TX or OpenTX. Now the next change they made internally was having updated gimbals. These things feel very similar, as I said before, to the original ones. They're both Hall style gimbals, but these feel a little bit tighter, but that's probably because we haven't broken this in yet and used it too often, but it feels a little tight. Now coming to the external, one of the changes they made externally was the external bay. And as you can see right here, it looks very similar to the V1 if you take a look at it. Now they made a small and subtle change here, but it can save you a lot of time and hassle. Now originally you can see this thing is very identical here, same pins, it looks very similar, 3 screws. The difference here is this plug right here. Now to install and attach this little connection here, you had to open the radio, put the wires to the back and then plug it into a board in the radio. Now they put the connection here on the new one right on the back. So all I have to do is just plug this in and mount this, and it should be simple as that, probably 3 to 5 minutes. Really small install, but having the plug right here makes a huge difference, guys. The second change that they made externally was the SD card. Now the SD card, like, what's different about it? Well, they've actually included an SD card or micro SD card with this radio. The first one you had to buy, you could put whatever size in there. I think it was limited to around 32 gigs. It was the largest size. On here, it has a memory card already installed in there. Now hopefully that includes sounds and maybe a default model on here. But the size of the card is limited to around 512. So you are saving some money by not buying a micro SD card. So yes guys, those are the changes they've made to this radio, and it might seem very small, but it's really significant, especially the power management, and the Express ELRS change in here internally is just a huge deal, guys. So enough about the changes here. Let's power this up and see how this thing behaves. I have my antenna on here, it's already connected. Make sure you have that connected before you power it up. So hopefully you can see this. Let's power this and see if there's any change on what operating system they're using on this radio.
Welcome to Edge TX.
Ooh, okay. Now the screen looks a little bit brighter than my V1, that's for sure. And I can also see that the LED looks a little bit different. This is more diffused. All right, so let's go through some of this stuff. I would hit the system button here, and I see Express ELRS for tools and a wizard loader. So there's nothing else in here. I'm sure you can add more to it, especially if you want to use your external module. And you can easily go to the pages here, page 2, SD card, you can go through that as well. Wow, they have the packet rate already at 1000. Like they know that this thing can do 1000 hertz TX power. Let's see what's the highest we can use. This is set to 100 milliwatts right now. The website says 150 is the highest, but let's see if we can change that. Huh, it's showing only 100 milliwatts. I thought it was 150. So I can do 10, 25, 50, and 100, that's the max power. Looks good, guys. This thing here is really nice. I just need to bind this to my receiver, and that means I have to go to expresselrs.org and go on the configurator, and then flash this to the settings for my receivers. And once it's similar to my receivers, just like these modules right here, then I can connect this radio to my drones. I can't do it unless I flash it. So let's go to the computer, flash this with the latest firmware, and then I can see if this thing works and binds to my drones. Okay, so we're here at the computer. I have my Jumper T-Lite V2, and we're just gonna do an update on here so that this thing can bind with my receivers. So let's go to the Express ELRS configurator. And the first thing you want to do is download the latest version of this configurator. Right now, as of present, it's 1.4.2. Now I'm going to try to get to this pretty quickly just for the sake of this review. I've done numerous videos on how to flash your receiver and your module or your radio in a previous video. I'll leave that video linked above so you can take a look at it. All right, so here we are, and it's very simple. You want to go to your configurator, open it, go to official releases. Most likely you want to choose the most recent one. For me right now, 2.5.1 is the most recent, and that's gonna be a concern of mine because this is a really new radio, and I think it's shipped with 3.0 on here. And the reason I said it is because for your module or TX to communicate with your receiver, it has to be on the same major release, meaning 2.5 or 2.x has to be the same 2.x on your receiver. Now, because this has a 3.x, whatever it is, 3.0 on here, my receivers also have to be 3.0 as well. So I could just update all the receivers in my fleet for this test, but I'm just gonna flash it the other way around. In fact, I don't even see a 3.0 on here. This is gonna change just because this thing is relatively new. It just came to the market literally a day or two ago. Then there probably isn't any target for it right now. So typically, maybe in a couple days, you'll see your target in here, but you just have to go here, choose your manufacturer. It's obviously Jumper. So let's go to Jumper 2.4 gigahertz. And then you can choose either it's a receiver or TX. So you have RX if you have a receiver, TX and TX. So obviously they have one here for the Nano module and one here for the Jumper T Pro. But this is the T-Lite, and this just came out with Express ELRS. So the target probably isn't in here right now. Now this is gonna work to my benefit, but I do suggest, or I recommend that you do get the latest one, 3.0, and also flash your receivers with 3.0. In this case, it's gonna work for me since my receivers are already on 2.x. So I just go to the get pull request right here, and it should pull it straight from the website. Now you'll see a warning here saying danger zone here. If you were instructed by a project or developers. So that's interesting right here. So here's all the others here for other, I guess, devices. In this case, we are using the T-Lite Express ELRS. So I'm gonna choose this one, and then let's see here, category, and it's gonna be Jumper again, and let's see if I find it, Jumper 2.4, and in this case, here it is. So T-Lite 2.4 TX, so that's what I'm gonna use. And this is the same as any other flashing for Express ELRS. Make sure these things are set up. And all you have to do is just build and flash or build. In my case, I like to build it first, put the file on my computer, and then flash it via Wi-Fi. Make sure you have your custom bind phrase to match your receiver. So once this thing here has the bind phrase, any of your drones will bind automatically to this radio. And we'll test that once we get this flash. So all you do is just build it, save it to your hard drive. I've already done that, but just for the sake of this test, I'll do it again. Build. It's gonna take a few seconds to a few minutes to build this, and then save it to your drive. So once it builds my file here, I'm gonna have to update it via Wi-Fi. I also wanna download the latest Lua script, which I will do as well. All right, so it was a success, and here it is. It's in my temporary file right here. As you can see, temporary. And I can just save this to my desktop or anywhere. I'll just do that for right now, just for the heck of it. Let's just copy, and I'll save it to my desktop. All right, so now that we have our file saved to the computer, we have to power on the radio. We're gonna flash this via Wi-Fi. That means there's a Wi-Fi module in here. We'll have to activate the Wi-Fi module and therefore connect to it via the computer or your cell phone. And then we're gonna transfer the file from our computer via Wi-Fi to the actual module. So let's power this up.
Welcome to HTX.
All right, so what I'm gonna do here is go to System, Express ELRS, Tools. So I'm just gonna scroll down here to Wi-Fi Connectivity, hit Enter, and it says Enable Wi-Fi. So we're just gonna enable Wi-Fi, and now it says Wi-Fi is running, which is good. So now that the Wi-Fi is working and broadcasting a signal, I now have to connect to that network. I go to my network connections, look for it on here, and here it is, Express ELRS TX, which is good. That's a good sign. Connect to it. And the password or passphrase is Express ELRS. It's gonna bring up this website right here, which is 10.0.0.1. And it shows you everything here, which is pretty cool. What we're looking for is here is updates. It just says choose your file. So let's choose my file. We have it saved already. As you saw me save it. And here's the file right here. So we're gonna select that, open, and then just hit update, and let's see what happens. Update. It's doing pretty fast. Wow, pretty quickly. Update succeeded. Hit OK. I'm pretty content with that. Let's disconnect my Wi-Fi. So, technically, this radio here should be flashed, and it should automatically connect to my drones. Is it gonna happen? Let's find out. Let's go to the table. I have a drone there. We're gonna try to connect to it and see if it binds automatically to my drone, and take the drone for a flight and see if it works. Let's do it. Okay, so we're back at the table. We have our light radio here. It's flashed now with the latest firmware for my Express ELRS internal module. So technically this thing should just bind to my drones. I have 2 drones here, and we're gonna power these up and see if they bind. Hopefully they connect. So let's put this on first.
Welcome to HTX.
All right, and let's power up my drone, and I should see telemetry on here once I power this drone up. So let's see here. And sure enough, I have telemetry. Pretty cool. So let's see if this switch works here. We're just gonna try the beeper first. Okay, it does work. All right, let's try to arm it. I'm gonna scoot back here a little bit just in case this thing flies off the handle. All right, let's try it. It works. All right, can I fly this in here? We could try it. Let's, it's kind of dangerous. I don't recommend this. Let's see, we're in angle mode here. All right. So that worked pretty well. This thing is a beast of a drone anyway. I like flying this drone here. Let's see if this other drone here works. Let's unplug this. This is a new drone here, the Papa 25 by Beta FPV. Did a full review on this one. This one was a full build. It also has Express ELRS, and it has HD0 on here, so pretty cool build so far. Anyways, let's just plug this in and see if it also binds to my radio here.
Telemetry recovered.
All right. Beeper works. It works. Right. Pretty awesome, guys. Not gonna fly this one in here, although I could because it is a Cinewhoop. All right, so with all the game style radios on the market now, who is the Jumper T-Lite V2 for? Now, if you're a person like me, where I originally got this for its small size and form factor, this is the radio for you. Although there's game style radios in the market, this one still seems to have the best of the ergonomics, the lightweight, and just everything seems to be really nice. You know, this is just an addition to the V1. So if you were looking for the V1, I know this one was discontinued, there were people looking for this, then the V2 is a clear no-brainer, guys. It's a really good choice. And the original reason why I got this still stands. I like to travel, and I like to travel light. And if this can do the same thing as a full-size radio, then why wouldn't I go with this? Now, the second person this radio is for is someone who's coming from an RTF kit. Now, if you bought an RTF kit and it has a radio and maybe a goggles and a drone, and then your radio isn't up to par or it's failed, then this would be the perfect solution for you. Now, some of those remotes in the RTF kits, you can get them separately, and they cost between 80 to 100 bucks. So why would you go with that if you can get something like this? Very portable, really good form factor, same footprint, has a screen on here. You have Hall gimbals, and you have Express ELRS. And you can also get this in a multi-protocol as well. So I think this is a no-brainer if you're coming from an RTF kit where maybe you want something a little bit more premium. This is an easy, small step with no commitment, meaning if you bought one of the bigger, larger, full-size radios, then you might have to commit because it's larger, you have to put more money into it, you have to deal with the size. Some people argue that this thing should have a lanyard, but those are all things you have to commit to when you get a larger size radio. Now, the third and final person who might want to consider this radio is someone who's looking for a cheap and affordable radio with an LCD screen. Now, this Jumper T-Lite is very affordable, coming at the price of other radios without a LCD screen. Now, you have the Jumper T Pro, which is pretty cool. It's a really good radio, but it competes with other radios that has a screen on there, and the price is a little bit higher, around $100 to $120. This thing comes way under $100, and that's around the price of other radios or other beginner radios without an LCD screen. So you have the advantage of having the navigation here with the screen, and you also have Hall gimbals. So if you're looking for a cheap, affordable radio, maybe you want to have this in the backpack for a spare or as a travel radio. This is going to be my new travel radio. Then yes, this is the radio for you guys. Now, if you're on the fence about Express ELRS or have questions about how it works or how to get it working in your drone, I've done a series of videos on how to do that. I'll leave those videos linked right here. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.